It's been a long time since I last thought about this story, and maybe that's a good thing. I, Alex, along with my childhood friends, always had an unexplainable fascination with exploring forgotten places. Growing up in New Jersey, all it took was a short drive to find enough abandoned buildings to kill hours of boredom. Honestly, looking back, most of the places we went weren't that interesting. Just old decaying buildings, empty warehouses, that sort of thing. But every now and then, we stumbled upon something far more intriguing. On our list of places to visit, there had long been one particular name: an abandoned middle school about a 30-minute drive from where we lived. I won't say its name for privacy reasons, but anyone familiar with the urban exploration scene in North Jersey probably knows exactly which place I'm talking about. We'd seen photos of it online and decided it was finally time to check it out ourselves. It was late summer, and we were getting tired of the usual activities, shooting hoops in my backyard or aimlessly driving around town. I don't remember exactly who brought up the idea, but it was a pretty spontaneous decision. That night, there were 4 of us: me, Yuri, Frank, and Freddy. Frank and I were into graffiti art, so we brought along a few cans of black and white spray paint. I also had some leftover Roman candles from the 4th of July tucked in my bag. Our motto for exploring places like this was always the same: sneak in, wander around for a while, find a way to the roof, shoot off some fireworks, and get out before the cops showed up. Tonight would be no different. Yuri was the driver that night. He pulled over on a side street a few blocks from the school, and we got out. We headed toward the building and were surprised to see that the fence around it already had a hole cut open. We'd expected to climb, but thankfully, we didn't have to. The school was huge, much bigger than it looked in the photos. It would take ages to explore the whole place, but that was fine with us since all 4 of us got bored easily. Frank went first through the hole in the fence, followed by Yuri, then me, and finally Freddy. Freddy was the bravest one, so he always volunteered to go last, just in case. We found a door that wasn't boarded up and stepped inside. Even with our flashlights on, the atmosphere was eerie. Imagine your old school, but dead silent. Every hallway was stripped bare, wires hanging from the ceiling, tiles shattered across the floor. Insulation dangled like cobwebs, and broken furniture was scattered everywhere. The entrance we found opened into a long hallway, and after turning on our flashlights, we eagerly started walking forward. We took great pride in our flashlights. They were seriously powerful. When I say powerful, I mean really powerful. Mine cost $60 and could light up an entire room with a beam so strong it could blind you temporarily if you looked directly at it. It was a lot of money for a flashlight, but I thought it was worth it. The walls along the hallway were covered in graffiti. Some pieces were good, others terrible. Frank and I occasionally stopped to check out a few tags, but for the most part, we kept moving deeper into the school's darkness. I won't go into too much detail about the building's architecture, but honestly, it was pretty amazing. Seeing all the student desks and a stage literally rotting away was quite a sight. We quickly made our way through the basement area, which was the worst part of the school. We didn't stay down there long, partly because of the decay, but mostly because I could sense my friends were starting to feel creeped out. One of the rooms in the basement had a massive pentagram painted on the floor. It wasn't a pleasant sight, but it wasn't exactly unusual either. Anyone who's done urban exploration knows symbols like that show up everywhere. We didn't hesitate. The 4 of us eventually found our way up to the 2nd floor. There, one of the classrooms had a completely untouched white wall, like a perfect blank canvas. Frank and I grinned at each other, pulled out our spray paint, and started working while Yuri and Freddy said they'd keep exploring and try to find a way to the roof. They disappeared into one of the dark hallways, leaving us to finish our piece. After we were done, Frank wanted to start another piece on a different part of the wall. I decided to wander off to check out some of the better graffiti along the nearby corridors. I stood there for about 5 minutes, just admiring the remaining artwork, when I suddenly heard Frank shouting from behind me. He sounded angry, asking if I was messing with him. I turned around and told him I had no idea what he was talking about. Frank, still irritated, told me to stop joking around. Before I could say anything, he said, "I know you took my bag." I swore I didn't touch anything, that I'd been standing in the hallway the whole time. Frank believed me and muttered that it must have been Freddy. To be fair, that was exactly the kind of prank Freddy would pull. We shined our flashlights around the room just to be sure, but there was nothing. The bag was gone. We couldn't do much more graffiti without it, since all the unused paint was inside. So we decided to go look for the other two, who we figured were probably on the roof by now. We climbed as high as we could using the stairwells, but unfortunately, they didn't lead to the roof. We wandered aimlessly around that floor, checking each room for a way up. And then I stepped into a small side room and froze. Right there on the wall was another pentagram, just like the one we'd seen in the basement. Only this one was far more disturbing. It was freshly painted. I could tell because the paint was still dripping. And in the corner of the room sat Frank's bag, just lying there. Frank came in right behind me and immediately noticed what I was looking at. Without hesitation, he grabbed his bag off the floor and shouted, "What the hell is wrong with that guy?" I didn't answer. Even if it was a joke, this seemed way beyond anything Freddy would ever do. We left that small room where Frank's bag had been displayed in that eerie way right beside the still wet pentagram. We started walking down a random hallway in silence. Both of us were heavy-hearted, wanting nothing more than to find our friends and confront Freddy, or at least find a way out of this place as soon as possible. The initial humor of exploration had vanished, replaced by a chilling sense of unease. I kept thinking as we walked. No matter how mischievous Freddy could be, drawing such a disturbing religious symbol, and especially painting it fresh, meaning it had just been finished, and then placing the missing bag right beside it, that was no longer a childish prank. It felt deliberate and much more sinister. If it were Freddy, he would have been laughing and making noise the moment we found it. But he and Yuri were gone. That thought alone unsettled me deeply. Could Freddy have just been a pawn in some twisted game? Frank walked beside me, his face tense in the glare of my flashlight. He clutched his bag tightly, his anger now replaced by a mixture of fear and disgust. "Alex," Frank whispered, his voice so tight it was barely audible. "Do you think? Was it him?" I shook my head. "I don't know, Frank. I want to think no, but if it wasn't Freddy, then who? You and I were here. Yuri and Freddy left. Could there be someone else?" I trailed off. The thought of a stranger, or perhaps several, being inside this school with us, watching us, playing some psychological game, froze the blood in my veins. "Someone took my bag while I was painting, brought it up here, drew that damn thing, and put it back," Frank muttered through clenched teeth. They were really close to us. The feeling of being watched, of being invaded, suddenly became terrifyingly real. The vast emptiness of the school turned into a trap, a dark maze. Every shadow, every slightly open door could be hiding someone lurking. We quickened our pace, trying to stay quiet, but every step on the shattered tiles echoed like thunder. Then, amidst the dreadful silence of the hallway, we heard a sound. It wasn't crumbling debris or rusted metal. It was footsteps. Rapid, heavy footsteps, like someone running at full speed, echoing from somewhere down the corridor. The sound grew louder, closer, reverberating like thunder inside the hollow shell of the abandoned school. We froze instantly, our two beams slicing through the darkness. And then, two figures came sprinting around the corner. It was Freddy and Yuri. Both of them looked terrified, drenched in sweat and gasping for air, their usual confidence and humor gone. Yuri, normally the calmest of us, was waving frantically, signaling to us. "Run! Alex! Frank, run!" Yuri shouted, not stopping for a second. Freddy barely glanced at us, his eyes wide with terror, before turning and bolting again. We didn't even have time to be mad at Freddy about the bag. We just ran. In a moment like that, there's one rule I've always lived by. If someone tells you to run, don't stop to ask why. Doing that is just stupid. Instinct took over. The fear radiating from our returning friends was stronger than any explanation could be. We matched their pace, our 4 flashlights flashing wildly across the floor. Our speed was the speed of panic. As we ran, Yuri tried to explain what was happening, but I could barely make out a single word over the noise. They're chasing us. Who? Who's chasing you? I shouted, my lungs burning. We saw them, cloaked. Just run. All I could gather was that we were running from someone, possibly more than one person. The 4 of us tried to find our way back to the original exit, but inside this school, it was like a maze, especially in our frantic state. We tore through crumbling corridors, burst through half-open doors, ducked under falling debris. Only the sounds of our ragged breathing, pounding footsteps, and flashing beams of light filled the pitch-black space. We ran until our bodies were nearly drained of all energy. Finally, we were forced to stop to catch our breath. The 4 of us hid in a dark corner, in a side wing of the building we had never seen before. Our lungs were burning, and our hearts were pounding so hard I felt like mine could tear through my chest. We tried to breathe silently, listening for any sound behind us. Are they? Gone? Frank whispered, his voice breaking from exhaustion. Yuri and Freddy shook their heads, still too terrified to form words. I checked the flashlight beam, trying to see through the thick darkness of the corridor ahead. We quickly agreed that continuing to run aimlessly through this maze of upper floors was impossible. The only solution was to find a random staircase and go down. If we could reach the ground floor, our chances of finding an exit would be much higher. There didn't seem to be anyone chasing us anymore, or at least there were no significant sounds. We decided to move more slowly and stay as silent as possible. After finding a dark, rusty staircase, we carefully descended several floors. When we reached the floor, all 4 of us agreed was the ground level. We began walking down the corridor, feeling as though we had escaped danger. The air felt a little lighter, though the tension was still there. We turned off most of the flashlights, keeping only mine and Yuri's on to save batteries and avoid drawing attention. But just then, a sharp sound rang out from somewhere ahead of us. A continuous, piercing hiss. That's the only way I can describe it. It sounded like someone trying to imitate a cat, but it was disturbingly artificial and metallic, like steam scraping through steel. The 4 of us froze in place, hoping whoever was ahead hadn't noticed us. Slowly, silently, we began to back away the way we came. And then, a deep, low voice echoed from the darkness ahead. The voice was cold, emotionless, yet carried an unmistakable sense of threat. I should have cut you when I had the chance. Hearing those words made the earlier fear suddenly personal and specific. This wasn't a homeless man or a random graffiti artist. This person knew we existed and had a plan. That sentence confirmed it. We'd been watched for a long time. We didn't wait another second. We ran. This time, everything was 10 times more terrifying than before. I could clearly hear the pounding of multiple footsteps behind us. They weren't hiding anymore. They were shouting obscene words, savage threats about how they would kill us, and how they had already blocked every exit. It was the most terrifying moment of my life. I truly thought we'd have to run back upstairs, find somewhere to hide, and call the police in vain. Our flashlights danced wildly as we dashed through the hallways. The feeling of hopelessness surged as the footsteps and shouting grew louder behind us. "We have to get out. We have to find the exit," Yuri screamed. Somehow, in all that chaos, Yuri turned at the right moment into a familiar corridor, and ahead, under the beam of our flashlights, we saw the very door we had entered through. The exit. We kept running even after bursting through that door. The four of us stumbled through the hole in the fence, not daring to stop, sprinting across the grass, through the trees, running all the way toward the street where Yuri had parked the car. When we reached it, we jumped in, slammed the doors, and locked every latch in an instant. Yuri hit the gas and sped off. Even as we were safe inside the car, driving away, all of us looked back at the school. But we couldn't see much. It was too dark. Still, we didn't linger. We drove far, far away from that horrifying place. When we had finally gone far enough to feel safe, the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by trembling and shock. At last, Freddy spoke up, stammering as he began to explain what had happened to him and Yuri. As Yuri's car sped down the desolate road, carrying us away from the terrifying darkness of the abandoned school, the air inside the vehicle was thick with tension and shock. We were trembling, our ragged breathing slowly giving way to a heavy silence. It wasn't until we had driven a safe distance that the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by a restless need for answers. That was when Freddy began to speak, his voice still stammering with fear. Freddy explained that after leaving Frank and me, he and Yuri had gone searching for a way to the rooftop. After failing to find any stairway leading up, they decided to go down one floor to try their luck. As they walked, Freddy started hearing strange metallic clicking sounds coming from one of the rooms. He assumed it was just us messing around. They entered the room. What they saw inside wasn't Alex and Frank. Instead, they saw three hooded figures sitting in a circle, hunched over the floor. Freddy described that they seemed to be playing some kind of game, using small glass or marble-like objects. The beams of Yuri's and Freddy's flashlights suddenly illuminated them. They didn't say a word, Freddy recalled, his eyes still filled with terror. They just stared. Their cloaks were dark, and they sat completely motionless, like statues. The moment they realized they'd been spotted, the three figures lunged at each other and then sprang up, rushing toward Yuri and Freddy all at once. They didn't walk, Alex. They crawled and charged in this horrible way. That's not how normal people move, Yuri cut in, struggling to steady his breathing. And they didn't make any sound, except the rustling of their clothes as they came at us. Without hesitation, Yuri and Freddy turned and ran. They sprinted to the uppermost floor, hoping to lose their pursuers. That was when they found us. They're coming, Alex. A lot of them. After we met you and Frank, they were already right behind us, Freddy concluded. After hearing the whole story, our group fell into silence, trying to piece everything together. There were too many contradictions, too many things that didn't make sense. The most obvious question for me was, why would those people toy with us by stealing Frank's bag and placing it beside the pentagram if their intent from the start was hostility or even murder? If they could chase Yuri and Freddy so easily from the lower floors to the top, why waste time on such a childish prank? Freddy offered a theory. Maybe they thought we'd never find our way out of that maze, so they decided to play around a bit before finishing it. Yuri's theory was far darker. That room with the freshly painted pentagram, that's where they were going to do something. Kill us, or sacrifice us, or whatever kind of cult ritual they were planning. Taking the bag was just bait to lure us there. I leaned toward a different explanation. I believe those people hadn't even bothered to chase us when we ran down from the upper floors. Instead, they must have taken another staircase leading to the ground floor, faster, to cut off our escape. That threatening voice, "I should have cut you," was proof they were already waiting. Moreover, the number of people didn't add up. Yuri and Freddy saw three hooded figures. But later, when we ran, we heard the sound of more than 3 sets of footsteps and shouting from multiple voices. That meant there had to be at least 4 people, one who took Frank's bag and the 3 Yuri and Freddy saw, or perhaps a larger group. None of it made sense. This story might not sound so terrifying when I recount it like this, analyzing each detail. But trust me, if you had been there, you'd have been absolutely horrified. We never went back to that school. And as far as I know, that building still stands today, silent and unmoving, guarding its horrifying secrets within. This story may not be over yet. If you have a mystery, a fear, or a strange encounter, send it to Dark Whispers Audio. And don't forget to subscribe, because next time, it might be your story we whisper.